evolutionary biologist who's had recent and impact on my thinking. Weinstein. He is a member of the intellectual dark web. The reason why he's resonated with me is because he is fearless. He's fearless even in a way of the self. Throughout my travel to 93 UN countries and all 7 continents, I noticed but disturbing trend. Every country I explored, amongst the top lists of touristic go, would always include someplace rather dark. In Rwanda, it was the Genocide Museum. Repeat across the world, Cambodia to Chile, Pol Pot to Pinochet. Often wondered about what is driving it. I can thirsty for knowledge. I'm curious. The fact that every single country, regardless of how evolved now, had a bloodied and formulated a question in my mind. As much as we have our stories about colonialism and the like, terrible atrocities that we commit towards each other, human beings, and towards the planet and other species. I encourage people to research Brett in all his numerous lectures on such topics. He talks about something called a transfer frontier, wherein a group of humans will take it upon themselves to expand their own geographical space, influence a group of people, behavior. Sentiment across the world. You have to understand what are. Many times, root causes are biological. If you've ever been on safari in Africa, or lived amongst wild animals, or interacted or observed them in any meaningful way, you'll understand that biology is something that is innate, but has some harsh truths that we wish were false. But that's equivalent to in false things because the truth is too harsh. I think being human is difficult enough already. Resort falsehoods, lies. I mentioned before that biology and morality are two different things. Say that if we understand the atrocities are biological, with different strategies, quote unquote, do the right thing, whatever we deem the right. The answers are heavily supportive of intellectual discourse and intellectual honesty about it. Brett and Richard had a debate where Richard wanted to avoid ascribing such things as slavery, me included, realm. But I think what truly in most people would be to know that Hitler, you and Trump, you might have more in common than you think. Why I say this is we're all product of circumstances. So you never know what you're going to do unless you're pushed into circumstances that are so far out of your understanding, a primitive, fucked up way that you wouldn't want. It seemed like a tangent, but I think Andrew Schultz is a comedian who has this, what I consider a really funny joke that I shared with both my mom and brother about it should be able to. Thousandaires, the normal people that you encounter, they should ask. It's funny to me because he aptly identifies that you have no idea how you would act in the presence of a billionaire because you've never met one. Just like if you were one of these Jeff Bezos or whoever, you have no idea how you'd act if you had access to the who are also smart and everything you might want in a person. Unfortunately, you're only familiar with the circumstance you're familiar with, and you act the way you act because you're within a normal range, but you have no idea how you're going to act when shit gets rough. I watched a doctor or PhD dissect the statistics on marriage and divorce. He said that aside from money, one of the number one reasons why spouses leave spouses is because one spouse contracts some sort of illness or disease or is somehow injured. Last I checked, I thought that in sickness and in health and whatever the fuck the marriage vows are. But those are easy to say when you're caught up in some fairy tale cocktail of hormones and societal expectations. Your sugar daddy suddenly lost all their hair or had no ability. How are you going to act? But maybe you. Okay. I think the strength that I've had in myself is to know that I have no clue. I think I have my moral system might, but I have one. And that's always subject to change, subject to new evidence, subject to new information. I know, though, because I've seen enough of the world in the back of my head that I'm no better than Trump or Hitler or anyone else. I'd more likely say I've just had a different set of experiences that allow me to think I have a moral high ground on other people. But if push came to shove, if circumstance be capable of killing someone, I might be capable of lying and blaming someone else. No clue. But I did say to one of my kink partners before, who was a base jumper, that part of kink and fetish for me, part of adventure for me, is to push. You really have no idea how you will act. In some ways, you might learn something about yourself. In some ways, you might discover things that you're truly horrified by, and you work on them. In my kink experiences and all the other experiences where I've forced myself into, I've been mostly happy with the way I reacted. Learn a situation I would have previously thought. That being said, though, as any human being, I think what I'm good at doing is storing up otherwise negative, productive reactions for later. Last year, when I was bush camping through Africa and otherwise traversing through 37 countries, looking back, I think I found myself in what could have been considered fucked up situations. I think I could have, but stress, and it's come out in other ways. For example, the whole of 2019, I've been here and there and up and down and struggling in my own way. But I think the struggle's been important because I needed to know these things about myself. I've mentioned before in my anti-natalist deep dive that I am an anti-natalist. I do believe that it's always bad and wrong to procreate and bring children into the world. I might even say I'm a nephilist, which means I think it's bad for all sentient beings to be in the world. But in knowing that, and the fact that my choice was taken away from me against my will, I can still make the most of this journey. The reason why I actually think to make the most of this journey is because I'm salvaging the opportunity. I wouldn't have chosen it for myself. That is, I'm not having any. Because I have worldly attachments to any or all of the above, marriage, none of this I would have been, but I've have nobody telling me any answers. Even if they were to try to tell me that these were the answers, I have no free to be creative. That can be a curse though, because if you are a simple person, so I've spent remaining life and time being curious and satisfying curiosities. In that way, I approach. In that way, I think I've learned a lot about myself like I would if I was a scientific case, which is the best epistemological approach in all the techniques that I've learned. I still come back to the scientific method as being the best. So I have tested myself in my own tiny and longitudinal studies. I'll again mention that even something as simple, quote unquote, as this ongoing YouTube experiment has been such an eye-opening for me. No, my thinking I'll be continuing for the foreseeable future just because it's been so helpful to me. What's yielded the best results is that you do things that you think are going to help you, and in the process, something transformational enough if they find it can do. I have this thesis that people concentrate way too much on being part of a tribe or society. Primitive nature of that. In the olden days, 10,000 years ago, when we were hunter-gatherers or living in smaller tribes, death. But nowadays, I think we can look beyond that. Even if it is to mean death, I think it's worth it. I say that because I have no worldly attachments. The unspeakable here, oh my god, suicide. You'd be surprised to know when you start boxes upon boxes upon boxes upon boxes. I found a wild ride. The whole point of my life, 2 boxes. That's it for today. Again, the vlog went in a completely different direction than what I thought I might even talk about. I never even touched on what I thought I might talk about. But in any case, I am upcoming backpacking trip, which will bring me to including Israel, Jordan. I will be traveling to my 100th UN country. If my math is correct, it'll be 94 Bulgaria, 95 Albania, 96 Macedonia, 97 Greece, 98 Cyprus, 99 Egypt, 100 Israel, 101 Jordan. So I will have one giant celebration in Israel. I'll vlog, see how much progress I've made towards learning about. In the meantime, too, I suggest that Brett Weinstein or Sam Harris, I mentioned them a lot. I've been on a kick. Heather Heying, too, who is Brett's wife.